Well, it's a love story at its core, just pure and simple love story. And in that regard, it's, you know, everyone can have a reaction to it because most people, hopefully, have experienced love in their lives.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
The story of Carol, to me, is about friendship and about a period of time in our country's history where freedom to be who you were was certainly far different than we have happening today, although I still feel there's miles and miles to go. I think it's a very beautiful love story. I think its uniqueness is its ordinariness, for lack of an articulate way of putting it. It's a simple story about two people who love each other who can't be together for reasons that are largely societal pressures, and what that meant for two people's hearts.
What got me excited was that it reminded me of what it's like to fall in love and to be in Therese's shoes, trying to decipher how that person who you are becoming somewhat obsessed with feels in return.
I read the screenplay, Phyllis Nash's screenplay, and just found it absolutely compelling, the story, and I felt like it had really wrested Carol away from being seen through the prism of Therese's desire, as it is in the novel, and made her a three-dimensional character. So the film had a beautiful balance. But then it needs a filmmaker to make that into a film. And there were a lot of, it was on and off and up and down. A film like this, that's been around, as you suggest, for as long as this has, you feel like sometimes once it reaches, finally gets made, it's had some element of compromise involved, or we had to let something go. There's been no compromises made. It feels like it's been made in the absolute right way. And that's a really rare and special thing. So when Todd came on board, and obviously then Rooney, it just then became a film. It sort of was like a freight train. It had an energy of its own, which is a really exciting project to work on.
You know, we really get to know Carol through Therese's eyes, and so she keeps shedding layers and kind of screens of confusion or indecipherability, I guess. And we get closer to the real complicated woman behind that image. But that image is a really important part of how the film works.
Therese, she has all the things she's supposed to have as a young woman, you know, like this sort of perfect boyfriend and this job, but she doesn't feel satisfied or fulfilled by it, and I don't think she really understands why. And then when Carol walks in, she's instantly drawn to her, and I think she didn't even know that it was possible to be like Carol. You know, she's figuring out what kind of woman she wants to be, and I don't think she even thought it was possible to be that kind of woman. And you know, Carol comes in, she's very self-possessed, and she's very different than a lot of the women back then, and I think Therese is instantly drawn to it and thinks, oh, is this possible for me? Could I be this kind of woman?
She's such a remote, almost unknowable creature, Carol. She's full of mystery, almost hidden from herself, very self-possessed, and in a way that the impediments for her are she's been around the block once or twice in the way that Therese hasn't. And so the age gap between the women is really important.
I play Abby, who is a former lover of Cate's character, Carol, and who then, when she cannot have Cate in a romantic way anymore, she chooses to stay in her life to be her confidant and her best friend. And Therese comes along and is, I think, quite threatening to Abby, and is clearly turning Carol's head in a way that I think feels scary for her. At the same time, her love for her friend and her true desire for her friend to be happy and have a life that she should have. Todd does this incredibly beautiful mix of hyper reality mixed with hyper cinematic fantasy and beauty. And so it swirls together in this way where you feel like you're watching something that is so hyper real and yet incredibly cinematic, which to me is the most incredible mix for a movie.
Sandy Powell's costumes were, from the moment I put them on, there wasn't one thing she showed me that I didn't think was right for the character. Everyone just knew what world we were in, and that's sort of a testament to Todd. You know, for the months leading up to when we started shooting, he was so inclusive with his research and sent us, you know, 4 or 5 different mixtapes of music from the period and this beautiful lookbook of how he wanted the movie to look and feel, and all these films for us to watch. So we all kind of came there knowing what world we were in, and it's hard when you're making something that's period. I mean, in any movie you want to know what world you're in, but especially when you're doing period, there's so many different ways to depict it. And I think because we all knew what world we were in, everyone was sort of in sync with one another, and you can see that in the film. One of the great gifts of the film is that it's not shoving an agenda on anyone. It's really just, you know, it allows the audience to watch it without any defenses up, because it's not trying to push any sort of agenda onto you. And since the movie's come out, most of the questions aren't about the fact that it's a love story between 2 women. It's really just about the fact that it's a love story.
Incarnation of Therese is, it's cult-like in a way. You see someone who doesn't understand her feelings in the way we don't understand our feelings when we fall in love for the first time, but also doesn't understand the language for them. I mean, there was no language. She didn't even know that what she felt for Carol was love, because she was a woman. So she had no experience of that. So you witness someone almost learning how to walk, but knowing what she doesn't want. But she's not cruel, she's not strident, she just becomes increasingly clear. But it's really not until her heart gets broken that she can reform herself, and that she and Carol can you know, have the hope of being together. And the interesting thing about the balance of the screenplay is that just when Therese starts to reform herself in a mature way, it's when Carol starts to come apart and really needs Therese, but Therese starts to be the one who's remote. It's a terrible moment where you think, you know, that they're going to just circle one another and keep missing one another. I mean, that's what makes the film truly deeply romantic, I think.
I thought it was a really beautiful coming-of-age story for both women, and they're both in very different points in their lives, but they're both coming of age in a way. They both are deciding what kind of women they want to be, what kind of lives they want to have, and they're both deciding whether or not they're going to live by their truth, and they sort of come together in this strange way and sort of help each other along that path.
Flung out of space. Carol thinks it's, you know, if I fall headlong into this, I'm going to be falling in a different way than a girl who is much younger than me, because when you fall in love for the second time, and perhaps more profoundly the second time, you know what you're risking, and so therefore you know what you're in danger of losing. And I think that there's a kind of a melancholy, a wistfulness, a different sense of apprehension that Therese just doesn't have or understand. But perhaps by the end of the film, she understands that loss, and which makes the potential of their love in the future, I think, even richer.